another monkey wrench at you.
We're here.
That's right.
Hey, Dr. Kimberly, it says we're live.
We are.
And where's my bed?
It's time. Come on, let's go. Let's do rolling on the road with the doc. Rolling on the road with Dave. Rolling on the road with the doc. 100 shades of the possibility with Dave and Dr. Barrington. All right. That was cool. Yeah. That was all right.
Today is Tuesday, and it is the 10th of September. If you are watching via GRTV 25, the information that we are giving today that you will see is relevant and it is still in time. According to the Veterans Navigation Program on their website, it states that over 6,000 veterans commit suicide every single year. That comes out to 500 a month and about 16 per day. September is the National Suicide Prevention Month. So we're excited to have on our show today Autumn Hartpence, who is a United States Air Force veteran. And I do believe that she is a regional manager for the Veterans Navigator Program. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. Just for clarity, so I'm a regional veteran navigator. That means I cover multiple counties. We don't really have a hierarchy, so we just kind of work in a lateral platform. There are navigators in counties specifically. There are some that are regional, and then there are some that are state specific, but they are only in the state of Michigan.
So this program is not in any other state?
Correct.
Oh my goodness. We want to say thank you to Jason Lee, who is tuning in. He was our guest on last week. We thank him for his story where he is a thriving survivor of an attempted suicide. And so we're grateful for him sharing his heart and his story and for tuning back in again this week. So with the number, that number came from the national website of 6,000 veterans per year. Why is this program only in the state of Michigan?
So it was created about 7 years ago. There just seemed to be a need. And so the program is called Walking with Warriors. It is part of the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. So this really kind of came as a conjunctive program with the state of Michigan. And even though that we've had working with veterans in other states, we haven't really grown that far yet. They have their own programs that would be similar. They might call it something else. But for the state of Michigan, this has just kind of grown into something unique. So in current times, if you look at the VA website, there are reports out that capture how many veterans live in the state of Michigan. And so as of the most recent, I think earlier this year, there's about 460,000 veterans that live in the state of Michigan. Now, that's a huge population, but about 70% of that is over the age of 55. So, and then 50% of that is 65. And one of the challenges that we find about having such an aging population is navigating to resources if they're not tech savvy, or if they've not been registered with the VA. I'll give you a perfect example. So my uncle is a Vietnam vet and didn't actually sign up for VA benefits after 30 years of him being post-service. And I asked, why would you wait so long? And he goes, I was working, I had benefits. I didn't need to utilize any VA benefits. So there's a lot of common myths that circulate with VA benefits. If someone is working in the workforce, they don't think they think they're taking from other veterans. And that's not the case.
That's true.
And so,
Kylie says, this is a great topic. Kylie, if you could weigh in quickly, because they do service veterans, they have health care for veterans, home care, and how many of them may need those type of services, and if there's a way to be able to connect you and Kylie together in case they have a veteran who's receiving care that may feel suicidal or has not navigated those mental health services yet.
So one of the things too is it's greatly important to use that 988 option 1 if you are in crisis. I am not a crisis person. I am the post part. So once that veteran is to a safe space, then they contact me. I'm like, okay, so what led us up to this point of crisis and how do we keep from ever going back there again? We come up with a plan of action. So I walk through them with their story and talk about, what's going on. So they'll initially call me with a problem. Let's say, for example, behind on a utility bill, had an unforeseen bill that had really affected their funding. So then I set them up with resources of whether they are eligible for grant funding, if they're not service connected, connect them with a veteran service officer so they get a claim. That way, if they are, can get service connected, that would help them financially. So one of the things about working with a navigator is there's no eligibility. They can serve 1 day, they could be dishonorably discharged. That's not relevant. As long as you had served and wore the uniform, I am more than inclined to help you with whatever I can and find the right resources.
Okay, so Kylie says that we have connected our veterans back to their social workers and also called the suicide line for them in the past. Having home care for this population is very helpful to have companion care.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
we'll make sure that the two of you, and your information is here scrolling at the bottom, that they can email you at Autumn H at, what is it, I or L?
LSRE.
Okay. And that
All right.
acronym stands for?
Lakeshore Regional Entity.
Okay.
All right. So probably the most important thing you just said, Autumn, if you yourself are having thoughts of taking your life by suicide, 988 is the number. And if you're a family member or a friend and you're concerned, what do you do in that situation?
Same. So it's 988 option 1. They are there to give you guidance and immediate things. So the person on the other end of the phone is highly trained in suicide prevention and able to talk someone through, be able to connect them with immediate help. So I've worked with the crisis intervention team numerous times to just get someone to a safe space. I've talked with nurses. I've talked with social workers. I've even talked with lawyers. Because everyone's version of struggle is different. And it's a matter of working collectively with those advocates to be successful.
All right. So 988, folks, please use it. That's what it's
Option 1.
Option 1. Option 1 is for veterans specifically.
All right.
Okay. We want to say thank you to Ms. Hingston, who is watching all the way from Ohio. Thank you so much for tuning in on today.
And so, Autumn, now that we got the most important stuff out of the way, how do you fit into this most important stuff?
What do you mean? I'm sorry.
So, I mean, are you a veteran yourself?
Oh, I am. Yeah. She mentioned earlier about being an Air Force veteran. I was active duty from 2002 to 2016.
Wow.
Coincidentally joined closely right after 9/11. So tomorrow, even though it's been many, many years later, it's very near and dear.
Okay. Well, thank you for your service. And so your role is at the Lakeshore Regional Entity,
Mm-hmm.
helping specifically veterans, or you work with all kinds of folks?
So veterans specifically, but I work with all kinds of folks. So the way that I describe what I do as a veteran navigator, I do exactly as that title sounds. I help veterans navigate to specific resources to improve their quality of life. Now, this falls under the umbrella of mental health. And that could be anything. If you are sleeping on a terrible mattress, that can affect your mental health. So I could help find resources to get a bed replaced so that way a veteran can sleep well and improve their mental wellness.
Can I get a purple mattress?
I can try. I can give it your purple sheets. Does that work?
Okay. So Ronnie says, God bless you as our special guest. And of course, to Pastor Dave and to myself. Thank you so much, Ronnie.
Ronnie is fantastico.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We want to say thank you to all of those who are watching via YouTube TV, who are watching via Rolling on the Road, on Facebook, on my personal page, and at 100 Shades of Diverse Abilities page. And thank you for the like, Ronnie.
So yeah, Autumn, how do folks find you other than your email?
I really do a lot of field work too. So I go to events. I go anywhere where veterans could be collectively. I go work and training healthcare professionals to be trained in military cultural competency training. So that way, when they have veterans come in who could be facing crisis or suicide, how to engage them properly. Because as us veterans know, we have a culture, and it's that familiarity that helps us kind of calm down a little bit when someone gets them, because that's kind of where we kind of get to that crisis point, is overwhelmed. And sometimes when it comes to resources, there's too many options, which just makes it worse. And if you hear no so many times because a veteran is not eligible, or if it's not something that was what they're looking for specifically, they'll give up. And that's what a navigator does, is I listen to their story and I kind of pick out what their specific needs are, and I'll ask them, what's the most important thing to you? And so we kind of work through that. So address the most important issue, but everything else that led up to that point. So like I mentioned earlier, being behind on a utility bill, what happened? So if a car broke down, then they lose their job and they get divorced. Now they're down to one stream of income. Like all those things led up to being behind to a utility bill. So I just take notes and work progressively with that veteran. So it's not a one-time call. I follow up with them every week or every couple days to make sure that those resources are working and that they are on a better path, so that way they're not in this situation again. So it is a proactive continuation, so that way they're not behind on their bills and they have resources that are applicable to them and that they're eligible for them.
Okay, but I'm still not seeing, how do we get connected to you?
So I'm sorry. That was your question. I'm sorry. So you can email me. You can look at the Michigan.gov website, and then if you search Veteran Navigator, a hyperlink will pop up. It says find a navigator that services your area, and then all the counties will come up. So whatever county you live in, that will connect you to the Veteran Navigator in your area. And so I cover all of West Michigan. That's one way to get hold of me. 2, please go to these stand downs. That's what they have them for. I would love to see more veterans attend these veteran stand downs to get these resources and get connected. I'm always at them. So that's another way to get in touch with me. And then, of course, my email scrolling at the bottom.
Okay.
Were you at the stand down last Friday?
I was.
Did you meet our staff there? Disability advocates?
No,
I know quite a few of your staff.
Okay, because they were hanging out there, I think.
Yeah, I had my own table too, so I didn't get a chance to walk around as much as I like. But I've met quite a few of your staff before.
Cool.
Okay, so Kylie says, does a veteran have to have a mental illness disorder in order to connect to you?
Nope. You can have a hangnail and connect with me. Whatever's causing you stress, we will work through it together.
Okay, but you just earlier talked about the age group that are normally connected in as veterans.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned that many of them may not be tech savvy.
Correct.
So if they're not able to navigate through Michigan.gov or,
So referral is always a great way. Like all the social workers at the VA clinics have our contact information. So if they're going to the VA, and then of course, a lot of the local hospitals have our contact information as well. So it's a lot of referral based things as well. So law enforcement has my phone number. So if a veteran's not in the doesn't have an email or is not tech savvy or doesn't have a whole lot of support, there are others that do know my contact information to pass along to them too.
Okay.
So it's building that community partnership.
Great point. Well, we want to say thank you so much for tuning in to Rolling on the Road with Dr. Kimberly and Dave. The time is now 14 minutes after the hour. And if you are watching via GRTV 25, the information that you are receiving is not time sensitive. It is relative to you now and forevermore. We are talking about suicide prevention and connecting veterans as well as civilians, but mainly veterans, to services within the Kent County community. If you unfortunately are not in the state of Michigan, please reach out to your local VA medical center or a CBOC, if you will, and please dial 988. Option 1 is for veterans. Again, I'm going to put it back up here. It is 988. Option 1 is for veterans. And today is Tuesday, September 10th. So Ronnie says, can you please help or suggest resources to help out Heroes Corner? There are a lot of veterans there that are in need of help to fix their building or be forced closed.
Right. So their roof is leaking, and I have passed along their information. I have been in contact with community partners to see if that's something we can work together on. I've been to Harris Corner many times, so it is a wonderful facility that helps veterans. That's just something that we're continually working on. So we will keep up our efforts up to help them. Because
Awesome.
nobody wants to see that place closed. I don't.
Yeah, so thanks for giving us that shout out, Ronnie. I'm going to guess shameless plugs, I'm going to guess, Dr. Kimberly, that the majority of our audience are people like me, unlike the two of you, non-veterans. And so one of our staff members, I'm guessing you know, Autumn, Trina Edmondson.
Yes, I work with her very much.
Yeah,
I love her.
Yeah, Trina is fantastic, and she is so passionate about helping veterans. And because she's so passionate about making sure we are culturally competent, we've gone through that 2-day veteran culture training. But okay, we don't have 2 days. How about 58 seconds? Or do you have a shameless plug why people should take that training? Especially people like us that work in the nonprofit, helping healthcare professionals. But veterans, they're just veterans. What do you mean, culture? Talk to us.
So I will speak for myself on this one. I can't speak for all veterans. So 14 years of active duty service.
I'm just going to say there's the first gold star. If you think all veterans are the same, mistake. Autumn gets 1 point. Every veteran is unique.
Correct.
Unique within cultural characteristics. Unique.
Correct.
Wait a minute, and they're not always old white men either, are they?
What? Neither of you are old white men? How did that happen?
I know, you're literally looking at unicorns. We're at 20% as opposed to 80% population of being male. So that's what makes the cultural part understanding is how do women veterans suffer different than male veterans? Depression is not the same across the board. It really is a state of mind. So for example, coming out in a leadership position, it made it hard for me to transition because I was in charge of a lot of people. So to come out and have to start all over again took a hit to my pride. And I didn't know where to start because I didn't know how to be a follower when I had been a leader for so long. And then having more of a heightened sense of anxiety because of being that 20%, I always had to be more to kind of prove that it wasn't a gender thing, that Autumn is very capable about being a hard worker based upon others. Because I was in a maintenance career field for about 10 years, which is very physical, and not a lot of women were able to do that kind of job. So it took a lot of extra effort to fit in, to be part of the team, to show that I can do the job just as much as someone else, which does, made it very difficult when I got out, to where I had a mentor say, like, Autumn, you're like at 11, you need to bring it down to a 6. To which my response was, screw that, they need to bring it up. But that militant mindset, it really was really hard for me to kind of adapt, because I didn't really know how to transition. Because as I talk with healthcare professionals and other veterans, in the beginning, we all go through the same training. We go through the all basic training. but there's no deconditioning on the back half. Some veterans didn't get any kind of transition course. Some maybe had a couple weeks. Like mine was 2 weeks. So my entire adult life being military, and I get 2 weeks to transition. Like, good luck out there. It was really hard. And
we
so,
want to say, hold on, hello to Shayna, who is tuning in from Bel Air, Maryland. And we have a question. We have a person who is watching in Ohio and says, what are the signs of a person that's suicidal?
I mean, once again, every veteran is different, but I will tell you what I've learned, working with veterans up to the point who have had suicidal ideation is there are always indicators well in advance that will let you know that they're on that track. Now, whether it be relationship issues, financial issues, severe PTSD, mental health issues, just unresolved trauma that they're not getting the help they need. And then once they kind of get to that point, they're a little bit different. So I would suggest that you take the suicide prevention training just to kind of be knowledgeable, just because there's so much that could happen. Some are giving away their stuff and they're happy as heck because they're like, I don't have to, I've made my decision. And then some are just so depressed that they just stop leaving their house. It just really depends on that person. But to pay attention to the nonverbals, I would say, is one of the indicators to really be aware of. Changed behavior is a big one.
Thank you, Jenny Marco, for she gave us a wonderful heart. We appreciate that. I am going to suggest to this person, if you go back and you watch our show from last Tuesday of leaving those behind, I think that particular show was those who commit suicide and the ones that they leave behind. They have some really great signs in there. It's a grandmother who talks about her 20-year-old grandson who tried 3 times, and on the 3rd time, she found him the first 2 times, but the 3rd time she did not find him. And just for the sake of time on today, I would suggest you go back because it gives you an opportunity. I think, don't you think so, Dave? To see
that's great. And
the different aspects.
With Autumn's email address, LSRE, for the Lakeshore Regional Entity here in West Michigan, I'm going to assume there's going to be links on that website that will give you more information. And so, watch last week's show, Google signs of suicide or preparations, just so that you're as prepared as possible. This is one of those things that, I tried to, instill in our staff here, trust your gut. Like if you're going to a situation and you don't feel safe, get out of there. Don't just, trust your gut. And, if you feel a family member, there's a high likelihood you're going to tick them off, because either way, but trust your gut, because you don't want to have that guilt after the fact that and again, you can't, we call it suicide prevention, and no matter how much work and help you provide to somebody, and as Ellen said last week, and I've known Ellen for a long time. I mean, there is nobody that I know that is a more rock solid, awesome human being that I'm sure loved her grandson tremendously, and he couldn't beat the mental health condition he had. And as Dr. Kimberly said, he tried 3 times and then unfortunately was successful the 3rd. So like we call it survivor's guilt for that reason. We feel guilty because we survived, and it's like, A, you can't really prevent it, but B, you can definitely try to throw some roadblocks to slow somebody down and hopefully get them to think, okay, let me call 988 option 1 if you're a veteran. So, anyways,
Right.
that's my tirade on it.
But you know what? I think last week, you saying that, I think that was the most profound statement to me, especially when she said they had done all of the steps. You know, number one, she was in healthcare. So she knew every last one of the signs, took him to every appointment, made sure that he had medication, provided him with a home environment that was conducive for him to thrive, and was with him every step of the moment. And then she said, what was it, a year later, I think, that one of his friends came and said to her that he did this for him. It was what he needed, and it was what was best for him, because it was unfair for him to continue to live that way. Because she said that they noticed the signs of him being depressed from preschool, and that the first time that he tried, he was 10 years old.
That's so unfortunate. So I will add with this too, one of the things I've learned working with a lot of veterans is sometimes it's a neurological disconnect. It doesn't matter how much treatment they get, how much medication they take, how many people that love them. There's something going on which requires additional treatment. And the VA does have facilities that help with neurological disorders to be able to help reduce that disconnect so they can be receptive to treatment. And sometimes that does happen.
Yeah. Hey, Maddie. Maddie is tuning in from Arkansas. Glad to have you on board. Again, so the viewer from Ohio says that what advice could you give a person, or how could you talk to them out of suicide? Never ran across anyone. Is there certain keywords that they would use in a conversation that would indicate that they are suicidal? People usually cry out for help first. Again, I am right now typing the title of last week's show, and that is really for, I want to say, just regular civilians, family, friends, church members. It is a great video to watch to give you just kind of an overall purview. And we do give you numbers and outreach. We even give a therapist name that you can reach out to if you need to get therapy.
Right.
Because even though we do have a veteran, and we're talking about the veteran community, last week it was civilians. This week, we're talking about military or veterans at this particular time. But suicide affects everyone.
Right.
Everyone, all nationalities, all classes of people. So that's what I can tell you. That truly is called Loved Ones. The show is on YouTube, and it is called Loved Ones Left Behind When You Commit Suicide. And our guest was Ellen Atkins. And I think I can copy right now. So I'm copying and I'm pasting, click copy and paste. And since I know exactly who you are, I will send it to you after. I'll send you the link to the show after the show, and then I'll paste it again. And that is, let's see, I'm going to make sure that everybody knows it is on. Click on YouTube. And it really gives great insight. Wouldn't you say, Dave? From a family's perspective, not just only as a family, but as someone who's well educated, trained, and versed with over 40 years worth of experience. I think it gives a great overview. And then the conversation that we had, the questions and the comments, was just overwhelming. A lot of those questions were asked and answered.
Absolutely.
I will tell you that, I'm not a healthcare professional in mental health in that scope. So it's hard for me to answer those specific questions. But one of the best things about being a navigator is helping find those specific resources helps reduce the chances of suicide, because they're help with their specific need.
Excellent. And you said this program, though, that you're part of is only in Michigan?
Yes, currently it's only in Michigan. I'm sure one day soon we'll branch out into other states, but it was something that the state of Michigan saw as a need for our veterans, and we have had a lot of success. We have helped thousands upon thousands of veterans, and out of 7 years, had two unpreventable suicides. And I personally have worked with veterans and have helped them change that mindset, which is one of my favorite things about this job, is giving others hope.
Awesome. 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 And then are you based at the Lakeshore Regional Entity, or are you?
No, I'm in Kent County, but I oversee 7 counties, and then so it's Lake Mason, Oceana, Muskegon, Kent, Ottawa, and Allegan County are the counties that I help with.
Okay, so you see, here we go again. Here's our Michigan map.
Yep.
It's all of this right here.
Yeah,
right.
But not Newaygo.
There's a veteran navigator in Newaygo.
Okay, so you wrap around Newaygo because only
Yeah.
Lake and Kent aren't on the lakeshore, and the other ones get to be all lakeshore people.
Yeah, so it's kind of a very complex program because each navigator works for a different organization. So we don't work for the same people, but we're part of the same program. It's a grant-funded program that this CCBHCs have adopted. And so I work for an agency that is kind of like I guess would be like a compliance officers to all the CCBHCs in this region. And so helping those veterans specifically because of the military culture, that it's just a lot more relatable to talk to veterans and some of the things that they might be stuck with specifically. So, for example, working with Vietnam vets who feel a certain way about the VA, okay, well, how do I find some other resources if they do not want to be a part of the veteran affairs system that would be applicable for them to help them fulfill their need? And so I find resources from anything, not veteran specific. And by the way, it is a free service, just if that was a question that was going to come up.
Okay, so
Right.
I really feel a lot of the healthcare professionals are overwhelmed with patients at this time. So a lot of times the patients are not getting the true time they would need to focus on the depression and issues the patient is having. There needs to be a center specifically where that has daily check-ins for those that may have attempted or feel suicide.
So the VA hospitals are supposed to do that when they have the inpatient and outpatient programs for mental health.
Do they have something like that through Network 180 Days where you kind of check in?
I don't know for certain, I mean, that would be, is Ms. Paul here in Kent County, or because it would be reaching out to your local community mental health system, or, if that's what we call it here in Michigan, community mental health. Ours is called Network 180. And then but to find that resource and then to keep asking, call your local Center for Independent Living. If you're here in Kent County, it's us. There's the website, dakc.us. You'll get to, you can send an email via our website, or our phone numbers on there. We've mentioned it countless times throughout our over 4 years on air. Boy, we sound old and cool at the same time.
Don't we, though?
4 years on air. That ilru.org, still ilru.org. They have a national directory for Centers for Independent Living. So, like Autumn, we specialize in navigation. Hers is much more specified. However, ours, again, trying to help people find the right disability resource. And that's the same with, again, our sibling organizations coast to coast, and we've been coast to coast talking to Centers for Independent Living, both in Michigan and around the nation. So head to that website at least you can find a Center for Independent Living, ask those questions about what kind of services and supports do they have.
Right.
So we have, it says they don't,
You have to, at the time, show that you are suicidal, and they try to get you a bed. And so saying more a place for people specifically. So again, looking more for I don't want to call it a crisis center, but just a support center.
Right.
What are those places? Do we have anything like that, Autumn, around and about in West Michigan?
So there's a couple different options. Of course, my go-to, especially if they're a veteran, is getting them to the Battle Creek Hospital. So the hospital specifically is for veterans for inpatient and outpatient care. Now, I understand that a lot of veterans do not care for the VA due to their own personal experiences as opposed to maybe hearing other people's experiences. But I always tell those veterans that they had a bad experience with someone who works at the VA, not the VA system itself. So that's one of the benefits of working with a navigator is I always vet the resources first, make phone calls in advance, so that way the other person knows that to expect that veteran's phone call, to show up, whatever the case may be. So that way there's a warm handoff. And then they do get followed up by me to make sure that that was a appropriate resource for them. So that's one of the great things about working with a navigator is making sure that we are talking to the right people to get those veterans connected and actually make steps forward versus saying, well, this is a place that I found, hopefully it works out. No, I want to make sure that that is the place that is appropriate for their need.
and I like what you said about the warm handoff, because I think that's part of the disconnect is, and we talked about this last week, what navigating the system and having to go to multiple places in order to get what it is that you need, or having to start out with, because I think even the week before, where so much has to go through Network 180, and then it's farmed out. And so having, the exact person that you're talking to and knowing, and then having someone who's going to follow up, I do believe is ideal. Again, if you are experiencing a crisis, please dial 988, and option 1 is for veterans. We want to say thank you to Artie Franklin for tuning in. It's now 20 minutes until the hour, and it is Tuesday, September 10th, and September is National Suicide Prevention Month. And we're doing everything here with Rolling on the Road and Rolling with the Doc to give you resources if you are experiencing any type of crisis. I do appreciate Autumn today, who is our guest, who is a veteran navigator, who will kind of help you get through the red tape. And I like to say that it's almost like she's an interpreter. So if you are speaking a foreign language and you are in a court system or you're at the hospital and you don't understand what's happening, then you have the right to ask for an interpreter. So I think that a veteran navigator can be your interpreter. And I want to say thank you to Secrest Hallman, Shantae Paul, Jenny Markle, who all left us hearts. I love the little hearts that floating up.
And of course, only to confuse things, as you know, I like to do, Dr. Kimberly, is that Autumn is a veteran navigator.
We all are. All the navigators are veterans too.
Veteran services, because she's a veteran, meaning she has experience. She's a veteran with a capital V because she served our country in the Air Force. So she's a veteran navigator. So back from my confusion, that I think Shantae's question was more like, if you're feeling suicidal, absolutely get you to the right resource today. However, it's like, what about, like, okay, afterwards, are there those less, just helping folks maintain that? I'm not looking for a clinic, I'm interpreting her question. She's not looking for a clinical setting, which again requires crisis. what are those places just to help people kind of stay um, stay, well grounded, so then they don't. And then it's the last part of her comment, so that we would save people from going, to become inpatients or, needing a bed in a.
I am beyond glad you asked that question, and I cannot foot stomp this
Yes.
enough. And this is for everyone. So
There it is.
yeah. I'll try to get. I can't read what that says.
Well, she said they like,
Okay, I see. I see what you're saying.
resources. She said they don't, you have to at the time show that you're suicidal, and then they'll
Right.
try to get you a bed. She's saying more so a place that people can go so they don't have to go to get a bed and be inpatient.
Right. So back to your question. One of the things I have found truly proactive to help veterans stay on track and to feel supported, join an organization that helps you feel connected. Find that camaraderie. Go to these veteran peer support groups. Be around people who get you. So one of my favorite ones is called Vet Sports. That is a national organization for veterans who play sports. And what I love about them the most is they just have fun, which is therapy in its own way. They go and play sports, so all their sponsorship can actually see where their money is going. But it's a wonderful thing to build these friendships and go out and burn off some energy that doesn't aggravate your service-connected injuries if you're applicable for playing. I have a friend who's on a hockey team that was suicidal. He's a combat vet. He's like, I don't know what it is about going out on the ice and hitting guys and hugging at the end that has saved my life. And it's things like that. And this gentleman has 5 children and a wife, but feeling suicidal because of his PTSD, was able to find something that keeps him grounded, that has that camaraderie he's looking for, that gives that adrenaline rush that a lot of combat veterans feel like they're missing out on. Because that's one of the things about suicide that for veterans specifically is if they did a lot of combat tours, they have a tendency to feel bored because they just don't have that adrenaline in their life anymore like they did when they were serving. And there's a disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Our interview on last week with Jason was excellent. He talked about, he had 6 points that he had that keep him on this side. And number one was getting a purpose.
Yep.
It was like, you have to have a purpose and a reason to live. So that was like his number one. Number 2 was having a higher power. If you don't believe in God, but having something higher than outside of yourself.
Yep.
Number 3,
having faith.
Number 3, I really liked. He said was he gets up and he encourages himself until he said he starts to really feel it in his spirit, because it's one thing just to say the words, but to repeat it until it was truly in his spirit. And that's what he was working from, is talking his self-talk.
And that's the hardest one.
Which was a big one, his self-talk. Yeah. That was number 3. Number 4 was standing up for himself and being his own advocate. And that has helped him tremendously, is being able to set those boundaries and to say no. And Ronnie says, that's one reason I mentioned Heroes Corner. They help a lot of veterans.
They do. They absolutely do. And so before you go on to 5 and 6, I just wanted to point out, being an advocate for yourself, veterans do not realize that they have every right to a second opinion outside the VA in the community care. They have every right to switch teams in their VA clinic if they are not happy with their healthcare providers to whatever they're assigned. That's one of the most important things I advocate working with veterans who don't feel they're getting adequate care, is that it is perfectly okay to change. It is perfectly okay to get a second opinion because they know themselves best. So kind of before you go on to 5 and 6 too, I just want to plant in here that that's one of the hardest things as far as suicide and healthcare providers. So when you're in crisis mode, it's really hard to kind of communicate what's wrong in order for the healthcare provider to provide next steps. So those are kind of some challenges too when it comes to getting quality of care, because if you can't tell the, let's say, nurse practitioner what's really going on, other that you're hurting or you're struggling or you're having nightmares, that's a good amount of information, but not be enough to dictate what would be the next step kind of thing. So,
Well, I liked what you said earlier. And a lot of times that's where it starts, where, you know what, we got behind on a light bill, went to get help, couldn't get the help. And if you're, have two incomes in the family, one loses their job, and maybe you're the one that lost your job and you're still trying to figure out how to make things work. You're sick, maybe you've got a sick kid, and it just piles on top. And in the state of Michigan, they really work with families, especially women and children. So if there is a man in the picture, he feels like, you know what, you can always go get welfare, you can get checks, you can get food stamps. I mean, there's just so many different resources that are available for women and children than there are for either complete families or for men. And yeah, because men have a higher incident of committing suicide, especially men of color.
yep. So before we go on, what was 5 and 6 first, just to recap?
I only remembered 4. The other 2 are in the other room. I was looking at them.
That's okay.
But I did good. I remembered 4 out of 6 after a week.
So I don't know if you knew this, but
I
according to
know. One was his relationship with God.
Okay.
That was, and then I know, it was the people that he hangs around.
Yes, your circle.
It's changing the people that he was hanging around.
All right, so I'm going to tell you something really silly, but this is great philosophy for me. So we know how we say that we have an inner circle, but then you say you have someone in your corner. Well, we all know that circles don't have corners. So I say that, think of it like an overhead light. When you're in a dark room and you got an overhead light, you just see the circle of the light, but then there's dark corners. I said, so you have people in your circle and they're in the light part of your times, but when you're in the dark corner, those are people who know you best when you need them most. That's why they're in the dark corner for you, as opposed to being in your circle and light.
Oh, I like that. That's nice.
I'm here all day. I have a lot of affirmations that really help me through my own times that I have passed on to veterans. So this one for everyone listening, in conversation with someone who's struggling, it's just sometimes you have to be real with them about where they're at, to remind them that their pain doesn't stop with them, that it's transferred to those who love them. So what's a continuation? Like, oh, well, my problems are all done if I decide to do this. No, the rest of us have survivor's guilt. And then your children go on without a parent, and your spouse is like, for till death do us part. Well, this was not how we were supposed to part. So thinking about why you continue to go on and what you need to do. And what's great about those who have survived attempted suicide is they're amazing advocates with their raw story to help people be better. That you don't know if things are going to be better on the other side. Might as well make heaven on earth for you.
I'm telling you, I am so glad that I'm over on this side and I'm still here with 4 years in. And what, about 10 years hanging out with Dave? And
oh, you were one of the most spectacular people I've ever met with your story. That I'm like, when people are like, "Oh, you're such a hero," I'm like, no, I know others who have definitely been like had a cape on when they were fighting.
we now live together. We're in the same space, and
yeah,
we just. I'm telling you, I'm excited. I have to speak in Florida to about 50 veterans, and I am just over the moon happy about it, working with Wounded Warriors and the VA down in Tampa. And they said, okay, what are you going to call it? And I said, you know what? there is life after this, and DIS. Discouragement, disappointment, disillusionment, disengagement, disjointed, dysfunctional. There is life after this.
It's just if somebody could count how many words start with this.
Oh, it's 1,000. Oh, I know. It's 1,683.
Not that I had that set up, but anyway.
Right. So the one I have is I was actually at a Dave Ramsey event, and he had this. The theme was called "Just Lead," and it was the icon was a bison. And so when we heard about the story of why he picked up bison, he said that bison actually, when a storm's coming, they run straight through it. And that's the thing is, instead of like cows, they'll just try to get away, get rained on, but go through it, because if you just keep going, you're going to get through your storm. And that's just, I thought, was such a great metaphor as a way of, storms come and go. I mean, the skies will clear. There's always a way to get out of situations, which is why it's great to connect with navigators. Now, I apologize for our veterans and our listeners in other states, but contacting your local veteran service officer, they should have resources, and there are advocates, social workers at the VA clinic should be able to help with those types of things and navigate as well. But for my Michiganders, I am here for all of them to be able to help them get through their storm, so that way suicide is not an option.
Yeah, I've been working on that all day today and yesterday, making sure that when I do go to speak in a couple of weeks, that there's enough resources. And I told them, so what are you going to need? We need some therapists. I said, we need some boxes of tissue.
Right.
Plenty of snacks. And we just have to make sure that there are resources available immediately for those who might need them. Again, it is 988, and that is nationwide. Nationwide is 988, and option number 1 is for veterans. And if you're not a veteran, still dial 988. The option 1 is just for them, but dial 988. And trust me, we need your story. I'll post that as well. The interview with TV8 when it was, and I think that we're doing so much better because in what is this? So that art piece that you have, that was 22, Dave. This Is Not Me. That was, Art Prize.
It would have been, 2 years
Art
ago.
Prize 2022 was so significant because in 2022, it was 22 veterans per day that were committing suicide. So as of today, we're down to 16 per day because the VA says that it's 6,000 a year. So you do the math, that comes out to 500 a month and about 16 per day. So there are services that are definitely working. People are choosing to work through their difficulties and taking their medications. That's a big thing. If you're given medication, you need to take it, because even at one point I was on lithium. and I am so grateful for having gone, and I got help, and I stay on this side, and we've talked about it. That's a show. I mean, we've talked about a lot of things, Dave. We have a show on how to build up, your inner strength. We had 12. 10.
A show, we had a series.
Yeah, we did.
So did you know that the VA has been collecting data from 2001 to 2021 on veteran statistics by all the demographics? And so I put together a chart with age specific between the state of Michigan and the national level. And so the highest number of suicides was between the ages of 55 and 74. So I looked up and did my research to see why that could potentially be the age group. And there really wasn't a whole lot of research out there other than how it was done, but not why. And because of this particular conversation with suicide prevention, I just want our listeners to know that my theory behind why that age is because that's when about people retire, their children move out of their home, you start to have more physical ailments, which makes it hard. So the possibility of purpose being diminished greatly increases at that age because you're no longer in the workforce. Your finances change due to retirement. That's if you saved. You're not a parent anymore. You could potentially lose a spouse due to age or medical issues, whatever the case may be. So a lot happens between the ages of 55 and 74. But purpose is one of the big things I would basically theorize is why that is the highest rate of our age bracket for veteran suicide. And so if you have loved ones that are getting up there that are retired, make sure that you just visit, converse with them, do family stuff still, because that's what they need. They need that connection because something that gives them purpose.
We have about 4 minutes left.
I know.
Are those your final words?
Yes, I because of our healthy aging population in the state of Michigan, that our elderly folks have great stories, but also could use a friendly face, some kind words, a phone call to just help in their golden years, because they are higher at risk for suicide, and we just don't want that for them.
Amen. Amen.
Dave?
Well, first, thank you again, Autumn, for your service to our nation and your continued service for veterans here in West Michigan. Keep, you're a person of service, and thank you.
Can you give your
Thank
information again, Autumn?
Sure.
How to reach you?
So my email is scrolling at the bottom. That is probably one of the best ways to get a hold of me, is just shoot me an email. So that way we have documentation traffic. So that way, if I send resources to you, you have something to reference, and I have your actual email, because some emails are a little longer. I might not write down correctly.
Can you say your email out loud and spell
Sure.
it?
It's Autumn, AUTUMN, the letter H, at lsre.org.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Today is Tuesday, September 10th, if you are watching via GRTV 25, and we want to say thank you for tuning in. Our guest today was Autumn Hartpence, who is a veteran navigator. So if you know a veteran, as Reggie likes to say, who's living down in your basement and you don't know what to do with them, please give them Autumn's email so that she can help them navigate some of the services and work with your family, not just with the veteran, but the family as well. And, you can always reach out here to the show. We're always available to give you the resources, and we encourage you to please go back. We have so much information, and it was talked about in great lengths for the last 3 shows, and the conversation will continue on tomorrow with Rolling with the Doc. Same time, same station at live 4 p.m., where this conversation will continue. We appreciate you for tuning in. And if you are in crisis, please dial 988. Anywhere in the 51 of these United States, please dial 988. And you do have a reason for living. Autumn is here. I'm here. And look what's happening. I mean, there was a moment where we were both in crisis, but we continued on, and now we are turning back and reaching back out to you, providing you with information and letting you know that there is definitely light at the end of that dark tunnel. And sometimes you do just have to be like that bison, just, me, I'm rolling the horn, and I'm got my headlights on, and I'm just going to roll on through that storm. But we'll see you on tomorrow, and we appreciate you all for tuning in on today.